You know the name BTS. Of course you do. They're a global phenomenon, a genuine cultural force. But before all the chart-topping hits and the sold-out stadiums, there was a story before the story. A raw, kind of gritty origin tale about 7 strangers, a total underdog company, and a dream that honestly seemed almost impossible. So yeah, let's get into it.
And this is really where it all begins. Not on some glittering stage, but on a chaotic street corner in Seoul, on Christmas Eve of all nights. That's J-Hope, the future dance leader of BTS, right after arriving from his hometown of Gwangju, feeling completely lost and totally alone. I mean, what a powerful image of just how overwhelming this whole journey was right from the very start.
So how did this whole thing even come together? Well, this first part is all about that, the initial assembly. You've got 7 young guys from completely different backgrounds, pulled together from all over South Korea by a company that was, let's be real, a massive long shot.
Can you imagine just leaving everything you know behind? Because that was the reality for every single member. We just heard about J-Hope coming from Gwangju, and it was the same for Suga, who left Daegu where he was already a working songwriter. These are just teenagers, basically, uprooting their entire lives for this huge, intimidating city of Seoul, all for a shot at making music.
And what did they find when they got there? Yeah, not exactly a palace. J-Hope's first impression of their shared dorm, it just paints the perfect picture, doesn't it? It was messy, chaotic, and 100% unglamorous. This was their new reality, just a bunch of kids trying to figure out how to live together in one cramped apartment.
And this whole underdog status, it went all the way to the top, to their company, Big Hit Entertainment. See, back then, the K-pop industry was completely dominated by what everyone called the Big 3 studios. Big Hit, by comparison, was basically a startup. We're talking tiny offices, renting practice space. They were always under serious financial strain. They were the definition of outsiders.
And that outsider feeling, it was right there inside the group too. They didn't just immediately click and become best friends. V's quote here is so telling. He saw the hip-hop hyungs, RM, Suga, and J-Hope, as one unit. And then he saw himself as something totally different. They were really just a collection of individuals, not a team. Not yet. Not even close.
This brings us to their next phase, which was absolutely crucial. These 7 strangers were literally thrown into the fire of trainee life, a process designed to melt down their individual identities and forge a brand new collective one.
Their dorm basically turned into what J-Hope called a rap den. RM, their leader, he pretty much created a school of hip-hop right there in their apartment, making playlists, encouraging freestyle rap battles late into the night. They were just living and breathing hip-hop, 24/7.
But, and this is a big but, here's the conflict. While the dorm was this free-flowing creative rap den, the practice studio was the complete opposite. They were being trained as an idol group, which demanded something called kalgunmu. It means razor-sharp, perfectly synchronized group dancing. And that military-like precision, it was a world away from the hip-hop culture they were building at home.
And the pressure was just immense. Jin talks about their producer, Bang Si-hook, pausing videos of their practice frame by frame, criticizing every single angle right down to the placement of their fingers. I mean, can you imagine that? It was this obsessive, relentless pursuit of perfection that pushed them to their absolute limits.
This whole period was a true crucible, testing them physically and mentally in every way. You had Suga secretly dealing with a really bad shoulder injury from a delivery accident he'd had. Jimin lived in constant fear of being cut from the final lineup. And J-Hope, the dance leader, was pushed to total and complete exhaustion.
But it was right there, in that shared struggle, that they finally started to become a family. RM would teach the others about hip-hop. Jin, he saw how badly everyone was eating, so he took on the role of chef, cooking them proper meals. V and RM would sneak out to eat together, bonding over breaking their strict diets. They really found each other in the middle of all that hardship.
So, okay, they survived training, but their debut? That wasn't a finish line, not at all. It was just the start of an even tougher, more public fight for survival in an industry that seemed ready to just dismiss them entirely. To really get how much of an underdog they were, you just have to look at this, the promotional rollout for their debut. A rival group from one of the big 3 companies, EXO, debuted with a massive blitz. We're talking 23 different teaser videos. And BTS, their biggest promotional tool was a simple blog where they posted their own mixtapes. The gap in resources was just staggering.
So when they finally debuted on June 13, 2013, the reaction online was, well, it was brutal. Initial comments made fun of their name, Bulletproof Boy Scouts, and basically predicted they wouldn't last very long at all. They entered the scene not to applause, but to this wall of cynicism.
But then, on that debut stage, something clicked. During a dance break, Jimin threw his hat clear across the stage, and the youngest member, Jungkook, caught it perfectly. As Jungkook remembers it, the whole crowd just erupted. In that one single electrifying moment, they cut through all the noise, they got the audience's attention, and it gave them their very first real glimmer of hope. That moment was a victory, for sure, but the war was nowhere near over. Debuting only moved their struggle from the private practice room out onto the public stage, where they now had to fight for every single inch of respect.
And they were complete outsiders. At music shows, they'd see all the other artists mingling and talking. You know, they were all connected from their time as trainees in the big companies. But BTS, they knew no one. They would just huddle together in the green rooms, totally isolated and on their own.
Their early career fell into this really frustrating pattern that RM later described as sweet, bitter, sweet, bitter. Their debut album was a small, sweet success, but their second album was a bitter disappointment when it came to sales growth. They were just stuck in this cycle of taking one step forward and then one step right back.
And then came a moment that was just shocking, really. On a popular hip-hop podcast, another rapper publicly insulted them to their faces, mocking their music, their name, and questioning if they even had the right to call themselves hip-hop artists. It was this direct, public attack on their entire identity.
RM himself said that this whole period for them was simply a struggle for recognition. It wasn't about the money or the fame. It was a desperate fight to prove themselves, to earn their place, and to just be validated for the music they were pouring their whole lives into.
So think about it. They started at the absolute bottom. They were underfunded, they were isolated, they were total outsiders who were met with doubt and disrespect at pretty much every turn. Which leaves us with the big question. How did this group, a group that almost no one seemed to care about, begin the journey that would ultimately change the music world forever?